We are in 6th chapter, Akdama Vav, in the Gate of Incarnations. And not to waste too much time on a recap, but we're talking so far in the last couple classes on a concept that is called panim bepanim, face to face, and achor beachor, back to back. No need to give much explanations in the level where we can understand. When you're happy with somebody, look them in the face. When you are very unhappy with somebody, you turn your back to them. Okay, that's how I summarize 3 classes. So there is a concept in Kabbalah how the souls were created where they're face to face, and we see an example to that with the cherubs over the ark. And then there's the concept of back to back. We were talking about that most of the souls were created back to back. Why? Because most of the souls were created after the sin of Adam HaRishon. So originally, Adam and Chava were created back to back, and they were supposed to do their tikkun, their rectification, and then face each other. Since I don't know if to call it the creation of the souls, but rather after Adam HaRishon sinned, and I will choose the word now to say he disintegrated into many different souls, or you can say he exploded, or there's many ways of explaining it. The Kabbalah calls it neshirat evarim, that all his limbs kind of fell down and separated, and that's all the rest of the souls of all mankind. So, since it happened after the sin, then the concept how the souls were created, it's called back to back. We were going through in class number 2 how these are all called old souls. We were trying to explain the difference between new souls and old souls. And as a joke, and it's not a joke, unfortunately, it's sad, but as a joke I was saying how sometimes as people, at least it happened to me a few times, you might not remember, but like 6-7 years ago there was some lady lived here in Tzfat, and she was giving people reading of their past lives. And that's when we started Be'er Miriam, and we started learning the Gate of Incarnations. So a lot of people would come and learn and say, so-and-so gave me a past life reading, and she said, I was like, what? Past life reading? Who gives a past life reading? So, not that I'm trying to insult anybody, but we know that the Arizal was able to see your past lives. That's where it ends. Okay? I don't know many in the level of the Arizal since then. So maybe the Baal Shem Tov, but we don't have the ability to see past lives. So if somebody comes and tells you, oh, 300 years ago you were a fisherman in Venice, really? Wow. So, and again, without disrespecting or hurting anybody, but we do know that the one who had the ability to see past lives was the Arizal, and I don't think we had a gift like that since then. Why am I saying that? Because once I met a past life reader who told me, she looked at me, very scary, and then she told me, you're such an old soul. And I was like, wow, like how old are we talking here? Like 5,000? Like what are we looking at? Is that a senior citizen, old soul? Like everybody got to come with benefits? We're all old. What kind of a statement is that? You're an old soul. Yeah, I have back pains in my soul here. So we're all old souls. Neither one of us is a new soul, by the way. The one that we know that is mamash called a new soul, neshama chadasha, was the Baal Tanya. That's a neshama chadasha, a new soul that came to the world. So that's why his name, we're not going to get into this, there's this Hasidic discourse explaining his name is Shnei Or. Shnei Or means 2 lights, and he, a connection of an old soul and a new soul. Anyways, we're all old souls, okay? When we talk about the concept old soul, then we explain based on the Shari Ligulim that it's a soul that is part of Adam HaRishon and fell into the klipa in the time of the sin. This is what's the definition of old soul. So we're all these souls. Eventually you will see, I mean we're only in chapter 6, we have many more chapters to go, but eventually you will see that, if you didn't see it by now, the entire purpose of this book is to teach us our path, is to teach us our goal, is to teach us my journey in this world. So I need to understand where I came from. And when I understand that I'm a little piece of one big collective soul of Adam HaRishon, and my rectification and my service to Hashem is not only affecting myself but affecting the entire world, then slowly, slowly I build a path to understand what's my tikkun. So old souls are the souls that fell into the klipa while Adam HaRishon sinned, which is most of us. We talked about it in different classes, how at the time of the sin, most of the soul fell into the klipa. We spoke about it in one of the Zohar classes. Some few souls were able not to fall into the klipa, and that's it. Actually, the Zohar goes in length and explains that a few souls went back to their source, a few souls stayed in the realm of Adam HaRishon, in the world of Atzilut, and the rest fell into the klipa. Okay, so I don't think neither one of us is one of these souls that went back to their source or stayed in the world of Atzilut. Now will fit more Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak and Yaakov and Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech and so forth. So we were clarifying that old soul means a soul that fell into the klipa at the time of the sin of Adam HaRishon. New soul, it's not a brand new soul that came out of a factory, rather a soul that came out of the klipa. Okay, and I'm simplifying and shortening all the last classes, because we went a whole class to explain what does it mean a new soul that comes out of the klipa. We gave one example that a tzaddik, if he has marital relations with his wife specifically in the right time on Friday night, having the right intention and the right kavanot, he can pull a holy soul from the klipa and bring a very great soul into the world. And that would be considered a new soul. So a soul that comes out of the klipa, we'll now define it as a new soul. Really, the reality is that each and every one of us has to come out of the klipa. We all are stuck in the klipa one way or another. Whether it's all the way up here or whether it's still my ankle, we're all stuck in the klipa. That's part of the exile. Nobody can come and say, I'm completely freed from the klipa. No such thing. You have a yetzer hara, you're stuck in the klipa. And that's part of our service to God, that's part of our Avodat Hashem, that's part of our spiritual growth, and so forth. So from here, we're going to continue. What I gave you now is a very, very short explanation of the last few classes. The concept of panim bepanim, face to face, achor beachor, back to back, and the concept of new souls and old souls. That's more or less what we spoke about in the last few classes. And, of course, we gave different examples that a new soul is basically a soul that comes out of the klipa. And it's free from the klipa. And then it serves Hashem in a very high spiritual level. We spoke about that in the last class. If you want to hear more, I mean, all the classes are online. You can see them all. So, if you want to follow, we are in Daf Chet Amud Bet, page 8b, Akdama 6, Akdama Vav, 6th chapter, and the line starts with the words Achda. You should know. Ki en banu koach bechol hazman hazeh. We don't have the power in this time, even afilu al yedei zivug shel Shabbat v'Yom Tov, even by having marital relations, kosher husband and wife. Kosher means the woman is after the mikveh, they're really married, and so forth. And I'm emphasizing really married because I don't want to repeat now a broken record how I told you 632 times that most people are not really married. Okay? If you want, rewind, go to other classes, see what I mean. Most people, unfortunately, in our generation and previous generations, people, I'm talking about Jews, they're not really halachically married. The rabbi officiating the ceremony didn't pay attention to what's going on there, and whatever it was, whether the witnesses are not kosher or any other part, and then the marriage is not a real marriage. And that's the reality with a very large amount of Jews in the world, that they're not halachically married, which of course when they're together having marital relations, it's a sin. It's not, definitely not a mitzvah, and hurts the couple, hurts the children, and so forth. But I explained that many times in other classes. So he says, all this time, even at this time, even by the power of having marital relations on Shabbat and Yom Tov, רק להמשיך אלו הנשמות חדשות, to pull these new souls, from where? אותם שהם הבריאה, יצירה ועשייה. Only souls from הבריאה, יצירה and עשייה. Which means that we don't have the power to pull a soul from the world of Atzilut. That's basically what he's saying. Even if we do all that is required, we still don't have the ability to do that. Which souls can we pull? From the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. Now it's important to know, if you're not fast thinking, or unfortunately doesn't have the right knowledge, when we know about the four spiritual worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, then it's important to remember that in the other side, in the Sitra Achra, there's also these four worlds, right? So kind of like a mirror. So if we have Atzilut, the Kedusha, there's also Atzilut, the Tumah, and same thing with the other worlds. So even if you would try real hard, you don't have the ability to pull the Neshama from the world of Atzilut. But yes, you can pull a Neshama from the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. Shehem Sod Neshama Ruach Nefesh. That this is corresponding to Nefesh Ruach Neshama, which we explained that in length in the first chapter of this book, how Nefesh corresponds to the world of Asiyah, and Ruach will correspond to the world of Bria, and Yetzirah, and Neshama for the world of Bria, and Chaya to the world of Atzilut, and Yechidah to the world of Adam Kadmon. We went through that in length in the first chapter, and we explained that very, very thoroughly. But, לעתיד לבוא, in the future to come very soon, אחר התחייה, only after the resurrection of the dead, and it's important the wording that he says here, because he says לעתיד לבוא. לעתיד לבוא, in the coming future, in many of the cases will refer to the coming of Mashiach. When you read in different texts, לעתיד לבוא, it's kind of hinting to us at the time of Mashiach. So he's very particular to emphasize, but אחר התחייה, after the resurrection. Because 40 years after Mashiach will come, whatever's going to happen in those 40 years, then after that will be the resurrection of the dead. That's really kind of a shift in the time of Mashiach. So he says, אבל עתיד לבוא, in the coming future, אחר התחייה, after the resurrection, דהיינו באלף השביעי. So it means we're already in the 7th millennium. יבואו נשמות חדשות יותר, will come newer souls, מעולות, in a much higher level, שהם מעולם האצילות. Now they're from the world of Atzilut. Which means that there will come new souls from the world of Atzilut that we never had an encounter with them or ever met. Can you imagine that? Meeting like a new Moshe Rabbeinu? I shouldn't even say Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is not from the world of Atzilut, but Moshe Rabbeinu is from the world of Tohu, a much higher world, but I said the wrong name, okay? So just another great neshama. And these souls, הם מבחינת הנשמה דאצילות שהיה לאדם הראשון. These souls that we're talking about are from the same concept of the soul of Atzilut that Adam HaRishon had before the sin. Hanikra, this type of level is called Zihara Ila'ah, the supreme or the exalted light. The source to all this that he's saying is in the Zohar, Parashat Bereshit. You can read that in page 52b. And he says, and we will, כמו שיתבהר בדרושים הבאים, and I will elaborate on that in the next chapters. So already knowing that at the time of Mashiach, then we'll really meet some new souls. What does it mean to us? They might come with new Torah. They might come, not new Torah, new Chidushim, new enlightenments on the Torah, and many other things. And sometimes just to be amongst us is already good. Which from that you can actually take that not all the souls ever came down here. That's already a chidush to think about. We think that all the souls that exist were ever here. Maybe not. Maybe they weren't. Maybe not all the souls choose to come down here. Yeah? וזה סוד מה שכתוב בספר הזוהר, this is the secret that it says in the book of the Zohar, in פרשת פיקודי, page 253a, שמיום שנחרב בית המקדש, from the day, that's what it says in the Zohar, from the day that the בית המקדש was destroyed, לא נכנסו נשמות בהיכל האהבה. Souls did not enter the chamber of love. שהוא אוצר הנשמות. That's the bank of souls. כי אלו הנשמות החדשות, these new souls, דפנים בפנים, that they're facing each other, מן עולם האצילות, from the world of אצילות, לא נכנסו שם. They didn't enter in there to the chamber of love. כי מזמן חורבן בית המקדש, from the time of the destruction of the holy temple, אין עלינו כוח להמשיך נשמות חדשות מאצילות. From the time of the destruction of the temple, we do not have the ability to pull down souls from the world of Atzilut. אבל נשמות שמן בריאה יצירה עשייה החדשות, but new souls from בריאה יצירה and עשייה, אפשר שיבואו. Then there's an option to bring them down, אפילו בזמן שלאחר החורבן, even at the time after the destruction. So now he's just summarizing to us that doesn't matter what you're going to do, because one might read the text and say, honey, you know what I learned today? That we can bring a holy soul down to the world. So it's good intentions, the right way of doing things, but not always works. You can have a lot of intentions and good desires to bring a holy soul to the world and try to follow the instructions. I know it sounds very mechanical when such an act has to be less mechanical, more emotional, but nevertheless, yeah, there's also some rules and regulations, and sign here, sign here, sign here, read the terms and conditions. But the point is that a good, God-fearing couple, when they are coming in the covenant of marriage, one of the major intention is to bring kids to the world. To serve Hashem in the right way, etc. But it's to bring more kids to the world so they can bring more souls into the world and educate and raise Torah observant individuals, kids, that eventually will be individuals, that they will have kids and they will have kids and so forth. So of course the intention of a good, nice, kosher couple is to do that in the right way. But listen, in Hebrew we say yesh ratzui veyesh matzui. Okay, by your faces you understand without even knowing Hebrew. Yesh ratzu is what you want, yesh matzu is what actually is. So, but listen, we do what we can, but we need to understand, because some people live in some la la land, that there are the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. Don't disturb me right now, I'm doing kavanot, have meditations. It's very nice, but we have to have our feet on the ground. So with that said, he summarizes that new souls that come to the world right now are from the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. I will add, with some exception. I'm sure there is. To every rule, there's an exception. So he's now generalizing it. I'm sure there's a way to bring a neshama from Atzilut down to the world, but not by us. Let's continue. אבל כל שאר נשמות הבאות לעולם, all the rest of the souls that come to the world, הם מאותם שהיו כלולות בנשמת אדם הראשון, are the souls that were included in the soul of Adam הראשון. Now before I even continue, I'll already jump to the end of the class and telling you, why is this important? Because it's not about me bringing souls into the world. It's me understanding what type of soul I am. Okay? Whether Hashem decides to bless me with a great high soul or not, that's up to Hashem. You know, I can do whatever I want. I mean, when I became observant and I was taught how to, you can just pass, it's okay. And I was taught, you know, I don't want to say Kabbalistically because that will be the wrong explanation, but I was taught, you know, while your wife is impure from her monthly cycle, there's certain Torah learning that you need to do, certain way you behave. I'm not talking about the not touching and all the rules of being separated. During that time, there's certain Torah you need to learn and certain tikkunim that you need to do. That by the time you come with her, yes, certain time of the day that you have to have marital relations and many different rules. So again, it's and I know it sounds a little bit mechanical. It's not. It's just preparing for a very lofty encounter. It's not necessarily a physical encounter. It's a very lofty spiritual encounter that if you do it the right way, Hashem is involved. Hashem is with you. It's not just an act. So you can do all these fancy things, but it's up to Hashem to decide which soul you're going to build, you're going to bring. Because all these preparations allow you to be a clean vessel to receive, right? But it doesn't determine what you're going to receive. It just cleans you up that, you're not going to get a lofty soul when you are not in that level. Although, on the contrary of what we're just learning now, in the book of Tanya, he says very clearly, two Reshaim, two wicked individuals, and the definition of the Torah of Rasha is not Hitler. A person who sins is called Rasha, okay? So, not necessarily what we think. Balatanya says that two parents who are considered Reshaim can still have a very lofty soul, bring down a lofty soul to the world. And the fact that you see it in front of your eyes, that sometimes you see people who are completely secular, and again, to the definition of the Torah, they're called Reshaim, wicked, and then they have a child, becomes a scholar, a giant in the Torah, something that has nothing to do with the parents, becomes a Baal Tshuva somewhere along the way, and you're like, where did it originate from, and what is the result? That's why I said there's also always exceptions. But I made b'chavana a jump, because what did we read? All the souls that are coming to the world are from the souls who were included in the soul of Adam HaRishon. So what's important for me to understand is not which soul I can bring down to the world. That's a merit, what Hashem decides to give me. What Hashem decides to give me, that's what Hashem thinks of me. If He gives me one child, 5 children, difficult children, not difficult children, the children not always reflect on the parents. A child can behave a certain way. Society will be like, okay, look what type of education he got. No. Parents can give the children an amazing education, and not only education, love and everything, and a good warm house, and the child will still go off the right path. Children not always reflect on the parents. Yeah, I know people like saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Okay, you can find a lot of fancy terms to say. I know many people, many parents who are amazing, provided to their kids everything that they could, education, love, and so forth, and the child doesn't go on the right path. Because that's the tikkun of the child. That's the life the child needs to go on. And that's also the tikkun of the parents, by the way. Whatever the child goes through and the parents suffer, then that's part of their tikkun too. I do whatever I can. When my first daughter was born, I told my wife, this child, we are the architects of that child's life. Whatever we feed this child now for the next 15, 18 years, that's going to be the product. Now, how the child is going to end up, I don't know. It's my responsibility to feed the child kosher food, to send it to a Torah institute, to teach the child about the Hashem, good midot, and everything. Whatever's going to come out. I have 7 kids. I teach them all the same thing. They all get the same food, same education, same loves, everything. 7 kids, totally different from each other. Not even one resembles the other. All amazing kids in their way. All going their path, not what I would want necessarily. But I do whatever I can, and that's it. And then I send them out to the world, and hopefully I was able to plant in good midot, good characteristics, faith in Hashem, love to Hashem, respect to other human beings, wherever they're going to be rich or poor or observant or not. What's got to do with me? Sometimes people look at the parent, look at the child, what's the connection? Well, I raised that child for 20 years, that's it. I don't think, I would love to, but I don't think my children will necessarily go in my path. Most likely they won't. That's their path. It's not my path. And whatever challenges they have to go through, that's part of my tikkun. Whether it's to be patient, whether it's to be understanding, whether it's to be forgiving and tolerant. So why am I taking you on this loop? Because, let's read again. All the souls that came to the world since then are from the souls that were included in Adam HaRishon. So we are these souls. Right? We are the souls that were included in Adam HaRishon that fell into the klippah and have to find our way out of the klippah. So it's not, and again, why am I saying that? Again, it's not about who I bring to the world. It's I have to figure out who I am. I will do my best to bring a good soul into the world. Okay? That's why we have to educate many people how to get married halachically. I'm talking about Jews right now. How to conduct yourself while you're married. Okay, this all will help. But Hashem will decide which souls He gives me. And all the souls that He gives you is a present. Whatever Hashem gives you is a present, by the way. Like we talked in the beginning of the class. You don't get stuck places. It's all presents. Okay? Even the worst that Hashem throws in your face, that's a present. You keep this attitude, life will look much better. If you have the other attitude that Hashem doesn't give you presents, but challenges, then life will be challenges. When Hashem gives you presents, you just need to know how to unwrap the wrapping. Hashem doesn't invest in nice wrappings. Okay? That's a hallmark. They put the confetti. Hashem wraps things very, very ugly. And if something is wrapped nice, it's not from Hashem, that's from the Yetzer Hara. So let's continue. Let's me read it again. So we're in the same paragraph. Aval. But kol sh'ar neshamot habaot l'olam, all the rest of the souls that come to the world, hem me'otam, they are the same souls shayu kelulot benishmat Adam harishon, that were included in the soul of Adam harishon. Achar asher nivra achor be'achor, the souls that were created back to back. And why? Because it is after the sin. It's after Adam harishon sinned. Vehechziru panim bepanim, but now you have to change these souls from back to face to face. Venimtza, so what do we find from that? So, sorry, I missed the whole row. Achar asher nivra achor ba'achor, first created back to back. Ve'achar kach, after that, the Kadosh Baruch Hu chazar v'nisro. The Kadosh Baruch Hu like kind of cut it, mibchinat achor ba'achor, the fact that they were back to back. Ve'echziro panim bepanim, and turned them face to face. Exactly what Hashem did with Adam and Chava. Originally, as the Zohar says, Adam and Chava were created back to back. And then the Kadosh Baruch Hu kind of cut them and turned them face to face. Venimtza, what do we take from that? Ki kol haneshamot hayeshanot hem ba'im mimeno. What do we take from that? All the old souls come from Adam HaRishon, right? And they're called yeshanot, and they're called old souls. So when one of these ladies come and tell you are an old soul, pre-corona, after corona. Somebody sent me these, these videos that they go from like 8 seconds to 30 seconds. That's it. Then they shut them down. Now they call reels. So somebody sent me a video. It was very funny, of some comedian, Jewish comedian. And he comments to somebody in the crowd, and he says, "Oh, I see some masks in the audience." He's like, "Very vintage. I like the look, the 2020 look." He went on with that, but it was just funny. So old souls, pre-corona, after corona. So all the souls are old souls. Why? Kivan shayu kvar ba'olam ba'adam harishon. Why they're called old? Because they're already in the world. They're already present in the world. How? Ba'adam harishon, in Adam harishon. Letzorech atzmam, but they came for their own rectification. They didn't come to support Adam harishon in any other way. Imagine that Adam harishon is included in all these souls, but each one comes for their own purpose. וכיוון שכבר ננסרו מקודם החטא, since prior to the sin they were so to say cut, והוחזרו להיות מזיווג פנים בפנים, and they returned to be face to face, אז ביאתם באדם הראשון, when they came with Adam הראשון, נחשב לביאתם הראשונה בעולם הזה. So it's considered the first time they came to the world. And that's an important thing to know, because if you remember in chapter 2 we spoke a lot about, and when it regards to Gilgulim, when did it come to the world? When did it start? Because the first time, that's the starting point. Okay, so when we learned in chapter number 3 that you have three trials, not trials, three, how do you call it? 3 attempts. After you fail the 3 attempts that you hear, that's it. You can't come back to this world anymore. Right? If you remember, we learned that thoroughly. So when are you counting the first visit? The first or the first Gilgul? Because the first time you come to the world, it's not a Gilgul. It's not an incarnation. It's the first time you're here, which means that the person dies, comes again, that's the first Gilgul. So these details are very important, not necessarily so important right now for what we're learning, but we have to put the whole book together. Velachem, therefore, these souls that came with Adam HaRishon, nifgemu bechet Adam HaRishon. If I'm now taking you on a ride, we're going from Tzfat to Yerushalayim, and forget about me. Somebody takes you now on a ride, and there's 3 passengers in the car, and chas v'shalom they get into a car accident. Then and let's say it's the driver's fault right now, okay? Not the Israeli style that it's your fault. It's the driver's fault. Then the driver, with his action, damaged the passengers. That's exactly what was going on with Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon, with his action, damaged the other souls. There's a place in the Talmud, I don't remember where, and the Zohar supports the story that when a person dies, then we all go up to the world above through Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Okay? Not like in Matrix that we go with the phone. We go to Ma'arat HaMachpelah, and then in Ma'arat HaMachpelah there's a tunnel that takes us up to the world above. Okay? The story says that every soul that dies comes through Ma'arat HaMachpelah and meets a person that greets them. Who's this person? Adam HaRishon. And the soul will complain to Adam HaRishon and saying, look, because of you, I died now. Right? Because we know there are 4 people who didn't die because of what's called the venom of the snake. Right? We all died because of the sin of Adam HaRishon. He brought death to the world. So a person who dies meets Adam HaRishon and starts complaining, because of you, I died now. You did a sin and now you brought death to the world. The Zohar supports that story and elaborates by saying that Adam HaRishon says, okay, you're saying that I sinned and I brought death to the world. Let's pull your portfolio and see how many sins you did. We'll see who's worse here. You sure you want to go in? So the reality is, yes, Adam HaRishon is responsible for the death in the world. Can you imagine the weight? There is a place in the Zohar that says that Adam HaRishon actually told Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, no, sorry, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was revealed all the sins of Adam HaRishon, and Adam HaRishon swore or convinced or made Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that don't reveal that in your book. Don't put all the sins in the Zohar. There are more sins than just eating the fruit. And it's interesting because just literally a few days ago I met somebody and we were talking about that. And the person says apple, and I said, listen, this wasn't an apple. Come on. It's a Hallmark invention, or the Vatican, whoever you want to say invented that. It wasn't an apple. That's not, we have 3 opinions. We have whether it was fig, either it was wheat, or either it was grapes. Most opinions lean on the fact that it was a fig tree. Other opinions. But nevertheless, not an apple. Don't think it was Adam is eating apples. But let's go back to the text. Adam HaRishon is responsible for bringing death to the world. So we kind of have some type of lawsuit against him. Let's say it this way. We can complain. You brought the death to the world. So, which is a great responsibility for Adam HaRishon. Since the souls came attached to Adam HaRishon, doesn't matter right now in what form or what way, Adam HaRishon sinned, so those souls got damaged. Like I told you, you go in a car with a driver, if the driver messes up, you didn't do anything, I'm just a passenger. That's what we need to take from this entire paragraph, is that when these souls come the next time, then starts the incarnations. Their first visit, that's the first visit. Now, why is that important? Because eventually, not that you'll ever figure it out, but we want to know that first of all, I can come, we learned that also in Shari Ligulim, you can come up to 1,000 times. Okay, that's what the Shari Ligulim says. Minimum 3. If you didn't do any rectification in the first 3, then 3 strikes and you're out. But if you started doing tshuva, no problem. Up until 1,000 attempts, go ahead. So it's just coming and telling us already the order. First time you come, it's not a gilgul. It's the first time that you came here. If, and we went very thoroughly in chapter number 1, all the ifs. If you came the first time and fixed the nefesh, and then sinned, and if you didn't fix the nefesh, if you remember, we gave all the scenarios how the first time will be interpreted. So here is clarifying that all the souls that came with Adam HaRishon, since Adam HaRishon sinned, then they damaged all these souls, and they are called, this was the first visit, and when they came the next time, that's already when the Gilgul starts. Now we continue. Vida, you should know, Ki nishmat Adam HaRishon, the soul of Adam HaRishon, mitchalek lerama chevarim v'shesa gidim. The soul of Adam HaRishon, it gets broken into 248 limbs and 365 tendons. Exactly like our body, exactly like the mitzvot and so forth. The same thing with the structure of the body of Adam HaRishon. Al derech gufo, הnichlal min ramah chevarim shesa gidim, equal to how it is in the body. If the body is built from 248 limbs and 365 tendons, so the same thing, what precedes the body is the soul of Adam HaRishon. And that's why I told you that we learned about it generally in other times, that I said some individuals are an entire part. The neshama of Avraham Avinu is such a huge soul that the entire hand of Adam HaRishon, the right hand of Adam HaRishon, is Avraham Avinu. Just as you have like the magnitude of the size of a neshama. Because if a soul is very large, big, or lofty, then he would be not necessarily a leader, but a soul that includes in him millions of other souls. So you would see it, for example, let's say in our generation, if there's going to be a certain tzaddik, and beneath him thousands and thousands of disciples, they all kind of belong to his soul, his followers. So Avraham Avinu, who's, his name was Avram, not Avraham. His name was Avram. Avram al Kulam, a father that is a father of many nations, and above all, Avraham Avinu, I would say 1/3 of the world, if not 2/3 of the world, are descendants of Avraham Avinu. So in regards to what we just mentioned, the entire right hand of Adam HaRishon is the soul of Avraham Avinu, which in that is included many more other souls. But nevertheless, same way that we learned and we are familiar the structure of the body, then obviously something that is above the body, the soul, has the exact same structure. More than that, גם יש בו נשמות של בחינות אחרות. In the soul of Adam HaRishon, there are other souls from other aspects. והם מבחינת כמה מיני שערות התלויים בו. The souls that are from other aspects, how are they going to come about to Adam HaRishon? Through the hairs. So they're not part of the body, which means if I'm a soul that is part of the body of Adam HaRishon, then I'm part of Adam HaRishon's soul. Okay, I'm a piece of the puzzle, I'm a pixel, call it however you want, from Adam HaRishon. But there are other souls that has nothing to do with what we're saying here. And maybe those are the souls that we're going to meet after the Tchiyat HaMetim coming from Atzilut. I don't know who these souls are. We don't know. But where are they holding on to the body of Adam HaRishon? His hairs. It's not a limb. Saying in other words, הם מבחינת כמה מיני שערות התלויות בו, רצה לומר מאיבריו, לאין קץ. לפי שהאדם הראשון היה דוגמת אריך שתלויים בשערותיו כמה מיני עולמות. Okay, he is getting into a more Kabbalistic explanation. I will explain it. It's not going to be so clear. Why specifically the hairs? Because Adam HaRishon was an image or a copy-paste of an example of Arich. There's Arich Anpin and Zeir Anpin. We spoke about it in one of the classes where I explained a little bit in depth the concept of Arich Anpin and Zeir Anpin. Anpin is a face, Arich is long, Zeir is small. And I explained that, I think even maybe in the course now that we're learning. But a long time ago, I gave a very thorough explanation because Parzuf is really a combination of a few sfirot together. And now if we'll start explaining it, we'll really sidetrack a lot. But Adam HaRishon is, so to say, the example, the image of Arich. שתלויים בשערותיו כמה מיני עולמות. That the different worlds are hanging on the hairs of Adam HaRishon. And again, like I told you, he's giving more of a Kabbalistic twist to it. It's not so important right now. And here he adds another thing, ובאמת, really, כן הוא לפי שאדם הראשון, אדם הראשון היה כולל אדם קדמון. Inside of Adam HaRishon was included Adam Kadmon, which is the fifth world above Atzilut, ve'atzilut bria yetzira v'asiya, the mechzav haneshamot, which means all the mechzav haneshamot is where the souls originate from. In Adam HaRishon, he had all 5 levels, from bria, from asiya, all the way to Adam Kadmon. But there were other souls that were not included in his body, and they were coming through into the world, so to say, hanging on his hairs. והנה כל ניצוצי פרטי נשמות שבעולם הזה, and here all these little sparks and all the details of all the souls in this world, Jews and non-Jews, it's important to know, it's not that we are so special, non-Jews too, כולם מבחינת אלו, all the souls are from these aspects of the hair of Adam HaRishon, ורמ"ח איבריו. Some of the hairs, and the rest are from the 248 limbs of Adam HaRishon. All the souls. I mean, of course, the ones, I'm not talking about the exception ones. ואומנם, אלו הפרטים והבחינות הנזכרות נמשכו אחר כך בגופות האנשים הנולדים מאדם הראשון. But the details became obvious and clear after these souls were pulled into bodies after Adam HaRishon. So, I wish I had some type of a way of explaining the visual. Usually I have a good scene from some movie to attach it, but I'll try to explain it in my way. When the souls were attached to Adam HaRishon, they were so immersed in as the soul of Adam HaRishon that it was not noticeable that it's other souls. You know, so it's easy to imagine the soul of Adam HaRishon, and many souls are like holding on. Okay, so that's not the case. It's like they all formed the soul of Adam HaRishon in a way that it wasn't even noticed. So the details, what he's saying here, אלו הפרטים, the details, והבחינות and the different aspects, they weren't noticeable. So if we would have some type of a picture to see Adam HaRishon prior, then we wouldn't see all the souls. It will be like one big soul. When did we start noticing all the details? Only when these souls started coming into bodies. Saying in other words, it's a little bit trippy that when we are separated from our source, then we have our individuality. But when we're back to our source, we kind of lose our individuality. Don't freak out because you don't. But we kind of become one. Can you imagine how it is? Just try to imagine, because that's a very high level of a tikkun, that we are all one. It's almost impossible for us to imagine that I'm one with one person. You know, maybe somebody I love a lot. But I'm one with everybody? And how my actions affect everybody, everybody's actions is affecting me. But to reach to this collective awareness that we are all one entity, that's a very high level. I don't think our mind is so capable of digesting how it was, that we're all collectively attached in a way that it's not noticeable. So when I live amongst other people, my uniqueness is different. I mean, every person, you sit now and you have to give an account of everybody around you. You're saying he's tall, he's short, he has brown hair, he has blue eyes. There's different. We see details that, how would you say, differentiate ourselves or differentiate ourselves from each other? Imagine walking into a room, everybody looks the same. It will kind of be like, what? And now, since we need some visuals, in the second Matrix, then Smith, there's suddenly like thousands of same Smith. How does the famous line go? Hello, me? No, it's me, something like that. How does it go? Doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. Can you imagine seeing you like a million you? That's a little bit like, whoa. I think we keep our sanity when everybody looks a little bit different. Can you imagine if we all look identically the same, or you wake up and you walk into a room and there's 50 you? Ooh. So, and again, not necessarily everything that we're reading now is necessarily clear or coming with a straight message, but we're just trying to cover topic after topic. So he's saying here something very deep and very profound. When everything was included into Adam HaRishon, no details were visible. So you wouldn't be able to differentiate between the souls, their purpose, where they come from. It looked like one big picture. I'm sure now in the digital age you can make a very nice visual of this thing. Like an image of a person, and then like poof, it like breaks into millions and millions of different dots. But what's interesting here and powerful, that each dot, which is our soul, one of us, forms the shade or the shape or the color of one big picture. Now imagine now you're looking at this gorgeous, gorgeous picture, and one little detail is like crooked or missing or torn, or it ruins the whole picture. That's your soul. My soul, I mean, listen, we have an ego. I think that the whole picture is me. That's usually. Really, I'm just like not even a dot in the picture. A dot that affects the picture, with no question. But nevertheless, people are very competitive, which is a very good character trait. I'm like that too, to a certain extent. Being competitive because you want to be number one, the best, successful, and so forth, it's a very good characteristics, as long as you know that it's just a game. You know what I mean? When you go beyond that it's a game, then you start stepping all over people. Your competitiveness. You know what I mean? Not that I'm saying you are. I'm just saying a person can be competitive in a very healthy way, that they want to be successful. An achievement. And how do you say achievement? No. Achieving. Ambitious? No. You need to achieve. You need to be ambitious. I'm saying that you have achievements. Okay. How would you say it? Have achievements. Okay. That's healthy. That's normal. As long as you understand that, I'm calling it that it's a game. But when you don't understand it's a game, and you by any price need to be number one, then you start stepping on other people. Bad-mouthing, trashing, and so forth. That's not competitive. That's already the whole point was distorted. But very healthy to have a personality that you want to be successful. We'll call it now number one, okay? But with that, you have to remember, when do you become really successful is when you understand that you are not the entire picture. That's the problem of many people, that they think the world evolves around them and nothing else exists. That's, besides a bad attitude, that won't bring you to any success. A person who's successful understands that, yeah, I want to be very good in achievement and have achievements in what I do, but there are always going to be other people that are better than me in many other things. But when we all stand together, then it's like kind of building a building. If the person who builds the building only knows how to do one thing, he can't build the rest of the building. You need the electrician, the plumber, the engineer, the architect, and so forth. That's how we are working as a human race. That we need to work, that each one brings their quality, shines their quality. We don't disturb each other's shine. Rather, we help each other reach to that level, and by that we create a perfect form of society. So that's what he's saying here. As long as we were attached to Adam HaRishon, it wasn't noticeable. So you couldn't say, oh, Chaim is doing great, he's pulling the whole wagon. Sometimes one person is pulling the whole thing. So let's go back to the text and we'll summarize.
An orchestra.
Exactly, like an orchestra. Imagine you have a 300-piece orchestra. You know what? I told you that story one time in one of my classes, and now I forgot all the details about a certain composer who couldn't make it to to the opening night, and he heard it over the radio, and they had the piece. And then he says, they told him, how was it? He said, it was horrible. What do you mean horrible? He said, it was one piece was missing. One of the players didn't come. And they're like, you noticed that through the radio? He says, well, I composed the tune. One player was missing, the whole thing. No, it didn't sound good. So just imagine so much more so. Now the world is not functioning in any type of a normal way, either way you're looking at it. Okay? I'm not talking about spiritually. I'm not talking about what we see unfolding in front of our eyes. There's no harmony in creation. Somebody once sent me a picture which was gorgeous, which again, now I don't know how authentic that would be. It was many, many years ago. That whether it's from a high altitude drone or a low altitude satellite, it was a picture above the Amazonas rainforest. Not Amazon, what's his name? Where you buy your stuff. In Hebrew we say Amazonas. How do you say in English? Amazon? Amazon. So it was like a picture from above, and it showed how the entire forest is like moving like this from the winds. But it was very high up. So we're talking here about hundreds of kilometers, and how in such beauty creation was moving. But it was something breathtaking. So, and it looked pretty real. It didn't look like it was done. It looked like from a very high angle. When you see the tree, you see the trees moving, but you see it spread out on 1,000 kilometers. It looked this gorgeous dance of creation. And I'm sure that from a bird's eye's view, you're looking down at the world has some type of a beautiful rhythm. The oceans are moving, you know what I mean? Winds. I mean, after all, Hashem is the one who writes the choreograph. I mean, the whole world is moving. Hashem is the one who's moving everything. But right now, we're not functioning so smoothly. Everything is like going to completely the direction. As a whole, when we're all functioning the right way, then the whole world will move in a nice, harmonious way. And needless to say, the energy will be different. Right now, it's completely like a mess. So let's go back just to the text so we can summarize. I'll go a little bit back. All these souls, אומנם אלו הפרטים והבחינות הנזכרות, all the details. Okay, let me go a little bit back. All the souls form Adam HaRishon, like we know that the body is built from 248 limbs and 365 tendons. Then the same thing is the soul of Adam HaRishon that is built from millions and millions and millions of souls. When you're looking at it in one collective way, it's not noticeable. When did it start coming noticeable? Then when all these souls start coming into bodies. So really originally, and that's really what the Zohar says, originally it was supposed to be only Adam HaRishon and Chava. And they were supposed to observe Shabbat, bring Cain and Abel, observe Shabbat and finish the whole thing. It wasn't supposed to be so many people. But just imagine how amazing it would be if we could do a visual of how it looks, that from Adam HaRishon, every little dot eventually fell down into a body, and then to more bodies and more bodies. So all these details became unfolded and revealed. נמשכו אחר כך בגופות האנשים הנולדים מאדם הראשון. All these souls and the details were obvious once they came into a body that was born from Adam HaRishon. And here I'm going to have to say a side note, or to put in parentheses, this is the writings of the Ari, it's not the Zohar. The Zohar might throw it straight into your face, so I'm just adding something here for you to trigger your thought. Let me read it in Hebrew and then I'll translate and then you'll see what I'm about to say. Elu hapratim, all these details that we're talking about, nimshechu, they came down אחר כך, after, begufot, in the bodies of the people, האנשים הנולדים מן אדם הראשון, from the people who were born from Adam HaRishon. Now put your parentheses, there are many who were born not from Adam HaRishon. Okay? Now take that as something to think about when you continue. So they are the ones who are הנולדים מן אדם הראשון. Okay? So we also know of entities that were born not from Adam HaRishon. And I think 2 years ago, we had a class in the Zohar of Parashat Bereshit, when the title, the question of the chapter, of the class, was if Cain was a reptilian, if you remember. That was the title. And we went through and explaining what was going on there at the time in regards to Chava and then the snake and Adam HaRishon and so forth. I'm just adding here one little detail. It's totally off the subject, but just to bother you now in your mind, and I'll read it again. Ha'anashim hanoladim min Adam HaRishon. The people who are born from Adam HaRishon. So put in parentheses, there are some that may be born not from Adam HaRishon. Ve'elu hapratim, and these details, hem hanikraim etzlenu, these details that I'm talking about, we call them shorshei neshamot, the roots of the soul. Lihiyotam kulam nimshechu misham. Why? Because they were pulled out of Adam HaRishon. While they were included in Adam HaRishon, you would never notice it's a soul. And there's a good chance that that soul didn't reach to the understanding that it's an individual soul. Now you have some type of an awareness that you are an individual entity, right? Assuming a person is healthy and a healthy mind, you understand I'm some type of an individual entity. I'm a part of a society, part of a nation, part of Hashem, but I am an individual. There's a very good chance that the souls, while being included in Adam HaRishon, didn't reach to this understanding. They were like, passive, part of a collective soul. But all these souls came down and became obvious when they became separate from Adam HaRishon. He says, we call it shorshei neshamot, the roots of the soul, liyotam kulam nimshachim misham, because they all came from the same place. And once they left Adam HaRishon, the structure of the soul, then it was noticeable that it was a soul. It was a separate entity. Mi bevchinot elu shel Adam kanizkar. Each one came from a different aspect of Adam HaRishon, saying that once they separated from Adam HaRishon, they became an individual entity, and that's called a shoresh neshama. Because really the reality that each and every one of us is not an independent soul, if one might say. We're not a soul like Avraham Avinu, which means that could very much be that me and another 500 people are the souls from the same branch. So really the main soul is the shoresh, is the root, and I explained that, if you remember, we went through that very thoroughly in the first chapter, how Adam HaRishon, and this is just now an analogy, don't take that as a reference. Adam HaRishon, you can imagine like a tree, that Adam HaRishon is the trunk. And from the trunk starts coming branches, but the big branches. Let's say 10 big branches. And then from these big 10 branches come out more branches, and more branches, and more branches, and more branches, and eventually 10 generations down, 50 generations down in branches, you can hold a branch. If you backtrack it, eventually it will come to one of the big branches. That's how the souls are. So could be, just for the sake of the example, all of us are little branches rooted in the same big branch. But if you go all the way back, that branch is rooted in this branch, in that branch, in this branch, in this branch, going to a detail of Adam HaRishon. And he says, Etzlenu nikraim shorshei neshamot. We're not a shoresh neshama. Now, if a person, that's where you can kind of differentiate. If you see, and I'm going to limit it right now to the world of the Torah. It's not limited to the world of the Torah, but for the example I'm going to give you is limited to the world of the Torah. If you see a certain individual, and I'm just going to throw a name, Arav Kanievsky, who passed away recently, and let's say for the sake of the example, had a million students. He had a million students not only because of his greatness in the Torah, because there's a very good chance that he's a shoresh neshama to all these souls. Okay? And it can be whether it's Arav Kanievsky or be Arav Avadia Yosef or Lubavitch Rebbe, or I'm talking now in our generation. I don't want to go back too much. Okay? Because I can say Rabbi Nachman and then, okay, well, so all the Breslovers, Rabbi Nachman is the shoresh neshama of all the Breslovers? Maybe. Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't know. Here I'm saying it, I don't want to say maybe not because I'm nobody to say such a thing, But since many generations pass, and you're talking here about thousands and thousands, could very much be that a lot are just students, not necessarily part of the soul. But I'm just giving you an example that when many, many souls follow one individual, there's a very good chance that that one individual is a Shoresh Neshama. Okay? And then by default, many follow him. And I'm limiting right now to the world of the Torah, because I don't want to now say a famous singer and people tell me, oh, there's a famous singer and millions of people are following on Instagram. That's not Shoresh Neshama. Okay? Or somebody will tell me there's a football player, Messi, and millions love him. That's not a Shoresh Neshama. He's a football player, people love him, and that's it. So I'm giving you an example in the world of the Torah. So there is a chance. So I'm not saying that a soul that is considered Shoresh Neshama, a root, is not alive amongst us. There's lehefech. On the contrary, even more so could be that these head of the branches are amongst us. Because when a group of people are drawn to one individual, it can be partial because of the teachings or the qualities or the knowledge of the person, and partial because they're all drawn to their source. Usually you will be drawn to your source. That's how it works. That's why you see in many cases, converts and Baal Tshuvas, they don't know what they are. I'm Sephardi, I'm Ashkenazi, I don't know what I am. And they go where they're drawn. You know how many converts I know that they're like, how would I know if I'm an Ashkenazi or Sephardi? Well, start going into shuls. Let's see where you feel warm, where you feel connected, where you're drawn to the nosach, to what you're praying. So, and then they say, oh, I feel very comfortable here. Here I feel comfortable. So usually you will be drawn to your source. So in many of the cases, we are drawn to a teacher, to a leader, to a certain individual that I'm not drawn to that person because of his wisdom, rather because it's the same Shoresh Neshama. It's what people say when you go to a person is single. And they tell you, I wish you to meet your other half, shoresh nishmatcha, from the same root. Because you want to do the same family. Not family, but like Avraham Avinu told Eliezer, don't dare bring me girls from Canaan. You bring me from my lineage. Right? We need to marry from the same shoresh. Let me just do one more paragraph, even though we're going very long, but it's connected to the other one, and then it's a different concept. But you got the point. Just to summarize it, that we're all, we'll call it now recycled souls, but we're all coming from the soul of Adam HaRishon, and we're all a detail in Adam HaRishon. And where does that detail come to life? When I'm in my individual body. Now you decide how you're representing your part, and what are you willing to do for your part. Because when you're going to come up to the heavens after 120 years, they're not only going to look at you what you did for your own existence, questioning you, how you led your life. They're also going to file claims towards you. What did you do to the collective tikkun? That's two different things, because a person might be very in tune to their own tikkun, their own rectification, but when it comes to do a tikkun olam, a general, a more larger scale, they don't do nothing. Or they don't see their part in the world. So that's also another thing that the heavenly court will point at you. Why didn't you do anything collectively? Let's just do the rest of the paragraph and then we can finish. Vehine, one should know, kedei ladat ata, it's important to know right now, kol ish veish, mashoresh nishmato, every person needs to know what is the root of your soul. If you can figure out your root of your soul, you're light years away ahead of your tikkun. צריך שידע ויכיר במי נתחלקו כל פרטי ניצוצות איברים ושערות של אדם הראשון. One needs to know in which person it was divided, all these parts and details and the sparks and the limbs and the hairs of Adam HaRishon. Not that it's so easy to figure out, but he's just saying it's important. וזה יקרא שורשי הנשמות הבאים ממנו. And that is going to be called the roots of the souls that are coming from him. So I told you already, and this is based on the Zohar, and again, this is not necessarily a shoresh neshama, but the Zohar says that Avraham Avinu, is Yad Yemino, is the whole right hand of Adam HaRishon. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily say a Shoresh Neshama, but it's the same idea. Avraham Avinu is the root of billions of souls. V'chen b'chol ever ve'ever, and same thing, every limb and limb. Al derech ma shedarshu Chazal, exactly what our sages have explained in the Midrash, particularly in Shmot Rabbah, chapter 40, section 3, Bapasuk, in the verse, Efo ha'ita beyasdei aretz, where have you been when the aretz was created? V'zeh loshono sham, and what does it says there? Ad she'adam harishon mutal golem. First, Adam harishon was lying like a golem, like a, how do you say golem in English? Mummy? Not a mummy, like just a body. It was there like a form, okay? הראה לו הקדוש ברוך הוא כל צדיק וצדיק שעתיד לעמוד ממנו. Adam HaRishon was just lying without a soul in there. Just the body was there. The Kadosh Baruch Hu showed the soul of Adam HaRishon all the tzaddikim that will come out from him. Because that's, needless to say, great honor and respect. יש שהוא תלוי בראשו של אדם. Some are in the head of Adam. יש שהוא תלוי בשערו. Some are in the hair. ויש שהוא תלוי במצחו, some are from the forehead, ויש בעיניו, in the eyes, יש בחותמיו, some from the nose, יש בפיו, some from the mouth, ויש באוזנו, some from the ear, וכולו. You can go to the Midrash Rabbah, Shmot Rabbah, chapter 40, read it over there, how he explains how every tzaddik will come from a different part of Adam HaRishon. But that gives us also the understanding that if there's a certain tzaddik that came, just for the sake of the example, from the Metzach, from the forehead, then all the souls that come from the forehead, who's their root? That tzaddik. Right? So, for your own knowledge, go to Midrash Rabbah, Shmot Rabbah, chapter 40, chapter 40, section 3, and see what he says there, right? How he explains that Adam HaRishon was lying like Adam HaRishon mutal golem, just the body there. Before the soul took the leap into the body, Adam HaRishon went on a rendezvous. Kadosh Baruch Hu showed him all the souls. This tzaddik, this tzaddik, this tzaddik. They're all going to come from you. He's from the hand, here's from the eyes, here's from the... I heard, I don't remember where, now close to heart because of Lag BaOmer, that Rabbi Shimon was from the ears of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now where did I hear it? I think I even taught it a few years ago here in Lag BaOmer. I don't remember now, forgive me. Rabbi Shimon, the word Shimon in Hebrew is the same root of shmi'ah, hearing. And now I don't remember, forgive me. But what we derived from that there was a certain tzaddik that was from the eyes of Adam HaRishon, and Rabbi Shimon was the ears. And why dafka the ears, the listening? I forgot, I apologize. But the point to take from that is that our great tzaddikim, there are forming, so to say, different parts of Adam HaRishon, and could very much be, let me just give you an example, and don't take it as a reference. Let's say for the sake of the example, Rabbi Shimon really is the ear of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, of Adam HaRishon, and a certain individual is a neshama rooted in that part. So that certain neshama, even 2,000 years later, will be drawn to Rabbi Shimon. We'll go to Meron, feel very comfortable there. Read the Zohar, relate with everything that it says. Love reading the Zohar. One person loves reading the Zohar, another person loves reading Likutei Moharan. Why? It's the drawn to your spark. You know, all the teachings are amazing. Bemet, all the teachings are amazing. When I became observant, I started in a Sephardi yeshiva. Then I moved to a Breslov yeshiva. Then I went to a Litvak yeshiva. Then I went to a Chabad yeshiva. I went to many different yeshivot. And everything was great. All the teachings. But you know, every yeshiva, they focus on certain types of books. And what saddened me is that the yeshivot were bad-mouthing each other. And you can't learn this book here, and we don't learn this. And that was part of my journey, understanding that, you know, I don't like the groups. I don't belong to a group, and I don't like groups. That's not the Torah way. And I understand you want to connect yourself to a certain tzaddik, a certain teacher. That's amazing, but don't put down the other groups. And your tzaddik is not the best of all of them, because that's what I heard in all the yeshivot. Our rabbi is the top. The other rabbis are good too, but our rabbi is the top. And here, that one is. It's not like ours. David HaMelech says, Mikol melamdai eskalti, I have learned and I have educated myself from all my teachers. So I have learned that all the teachings are amazing. You know, whether it's Chabad or it's Breslev or the Ben Ish Chai or the Chafetz Chaim, it's all amazing. I told you when we came to Israel, when we had to find schools to our kids, so one of my kids, we couldn't find him the right school. Somehow we got to a school next to Meron, in Or Ganuz. And when we walked in to talk to the rabbi, then two things convinced us to send our child there. I was expecting him to ask if we have internet at home. Okay? Because that's what they ask you in yeshivot. Do you have internet? Do you have a smartphone? That will determine if your kid goes into the yeshiva. He didn't ask us that. He asked us if we give our kids sugar. What's the kid's diet? That's the first question he asked us. And we're like, what? And he's like, if you give candies and stuff like that to your child, he can't learn here. You can't send your child here with shoko in the morning. I don't need a child sitting like this because he's loaded with sugar. So that already convinced us. But what convinced me, that I looked in the bookshelf behind him to what books he has there. And he had all the books, right? He had Chafetz Chaim, the Ben Ish Chai, the Gaon from Vilna, Rabbi Nachman, Likutei Halachot, Likutei Sichot of Lubavitch Rebbe. He had everything. I was like, oh, that's a Torah scholar. That's a Torah, a God-fearing individual. He has all the books. You go to a Lubavitch yeshiva, all the books in the back will be all the Lubavitch books. You go to a Breslev yeshiva, it's all going to be Breslev books, right? And again, they're all amazing. When you start learning all the teachings, I told you already, there's a concept in Kabbalah that is called Katnut HaMochin and Gadlut HaMochin. And the example that I gave you a few times when we spoke about it, Gadlut means gadol, wide, broad. Katnut is limited and small. So I gave an example of Katnut HaMochin, which is the problem of most people, as observant as they may seem, and as enlightened as they may seem. Most people, and I'm talking about the religious, orthodox followers, most are in extreme Katnut HaMochin. An example, a Lubavitcher and a Breslever meet. So the Lubavitcher tells the Breslever, you know, my rabbi, the Lubavitch Rebbe, he's the top. So the Breslever will tell him, what are you talking about? Rabbi Nachman is way better than him. Way, way, way greater tzaddik than him. He says, what are you talking about? You know, what we learned, the Likutei Sichot, the Ma'amarim, whatever, much more deep, much more profound. No, the rest of it, Likutei Moran, much more deeper. Way more than your Tanya. That's Katnut HaMochin. The Gadlut HaMochin is that the Breslever and the Lubavitcher meet, and the Breslever says, can you teach me some of the Lubavitch teaching? I'm dying to know what they teach in Lubavitch. And the Lubavitcher tells the Breslever, are you kidding me? I'm sitting in front of a Breslever. You open Likutei Moran right now and you start teaching me Rabbi Nachman. I don't know nothing about it. And this is one example out of many of Gadlut HaMochin that I want to accept from everybody. One is better than the other. Rabbi Nachman is better than the Baal HaTanya. What, they think they had a competition? Which one wrote? Because the Tanya and the Likutei Moran came more or less at the same time. You think they were in competition? Lehefer, when you read both of them, one caters the other. It broadens your mind even more. So I don't even know how we got to that. What? The Shoshei Neshamot, thank you. I will be drawn usually to my source. So if somebody wants to belong to a certain group and they feel attachment and closeness to the teachings, to the rituals, great. That must be coming from the root of the neshama. I'm not talking about that you don't like, dislike. No, that's not what we're talking about. You're always going to be drawn somewhere. So we will be drawn to our root. And that will be whether it's the type of learning, the group that I associate with. And don't take me wrong when I'm saying the groups are bad. First of all, it's not the way of the Torah. There's no groups in the Torah. There's tribes. The groups are good when they respect each other. And if it's to take you to a higher level. If the fact of being in a group takes you to a lower level, then the group is not good for you. Or to anybody else. But to summarize what we're saying is that on a collective way, all the souls were included in Adam Harishon. In a larger parts of the organs of Adam Harishon, that would be collectively designated to a certain tzaddik. Like we just read from the Midrash, the forehead, the ear. So just imagine how many souls are included in the ear. It can be billions. Billions of souls. Billions of souls in the nose. Billions of souls in the lips. What we need to understand is that when they're all together, details were not obvious. It was not so clear what the details are. It looked like one big form. B, different sections of the body are designated to certain tzaddikim, and Adam Harishon was aware of that and saw who are the tzaddikim. We are parts, we are, how he keeps calling it, pratim. Pratim is details. I'm a detail. With all my individuality, I'm a detail. Which means that if you take me, you, and you, we put us together, we form a whole different detail. Suddenly we affect the world in a completely different way. So by myself, I affect the world in one way. If I now come with a group of people, and we're all working in love and harmony and understanding, we affect the world. We change. We are a different detail. We look different in a spiritual way. That's where you see the power in Judaism and how much important it is to pray with a group of men. And who you're learning with. And learning in groups. You know, I like learning by myself. That's my, I don't know if to call it a yetzirah. I don't like learning in big groups. Even when I was learning in yeshiva, I was always sitting in a different room, in a different zal. I don't like the commotion and the learning. Sometimes you go into a yeshiva, there's 400 students there. I can't even read one word here. So, but again, that's a personality. But better to learn in a larger form of groups. Has a much bigger effect when you're learning in a larger group. Berov am adrat melech. You know, the more condensed it is with more souls, the more powerful it is. But we need to take from that I'm really just a detail. If I want to allow limited now to my own personality and to my own life, I'm a detail in the entire structure. And I have to be aware and I have to be refined and work on myself that I will be drawn to my source. If I'm affected or distracted, whether it's because of hate or jealousy or any other bad emotion, I won't be drawn to my source because I'm disoriented. I need to refine myself. If we want to take some type of a lesson from this class, is that I need to bring myself to a point that I can easily pick up on the signals of my source. Because sometimes the source will send out a signal, I won't hear it, or I won't feel it, because I'm covered with too much sin. Whether it's hate, whether it's sadness, whether it's jealousy, it doesn't matter what it is. You have periods in your life that you're stronger and weaker, but then I won't pick up on the signals. When I refine myself, and I bring myself to a place of selfness, of bitul, then I start picking up on the signals of where my source is, and I'll be drawn to my source. And why do I want to be drawn to my source? That's where I'm going to do the best tshuva. That's where I'm going to easily climb up to the best form of what I need to do. When it's connected to my source. And like I told you, there's much more to go. The Akdama is still, we're not even close to finishing. We just learned one little section, but we got a little bit more educated in the structure of the neshamot. The point to take from what we learn is how I can take this learning and affect my life to change my behavior. And the little tip that you can get is first understanding I'm not, the world doesn't evolve around me. I'm just a detail. And when I understand that you are just as important to Hashem as me, then you're not better than me and I'm not better than you. And we have to understand, I told you that already, that there's a famous question, a famous quote. It's a verse from the Torah what is a certain Gentile came to Rabbi Hillel and told him, to give me the whole Torah on one leg. Okay? He kicked him out of the window, but the answer at the end was, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, right? You should love your fellow person, your friend, like yourself. So that's a very noble way of living. When you're saying V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you have to love another person like yourself. You'll never love another person like yourself. It's impossible. I told you already that the chidush, the twist here, that when you're saying V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you have to know where to put the comma. Sometimes when you move a comma between the words, it changes its meaning. Because when we read V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, there's no commas there. The way it should be read, V'ahavta l'recha, comma, kamocha. Like how Hashem loves that person. That's the V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Not how you love yourself. Kamocha goes on Hashem. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. How Hashem loves that person. That changes the whole thing. Because I will never love you like myself. I love myself too much to love you the same way. But I have to love you how Hashem loves you. And if I look at you, as much as I hate you or resent you or jealous of you or whatever, but Hashem loves you. Kamocha, then I have to love you like Hashem loves you. Obviously, if Hashem loves you, there's something there. I might not see it. I might not like it. But obviously Hashem loves you and you and you and you and loves everybody else. If not, they wouldn't exist. They have a purpose. So that's really the how you apply it. That I have to understand that the moment that I understand, up until today, not up until today, from a certain point till today, most people are educated, right, that we are turning around the solar system. The reality is everything is turning around us. The world is not moving. I'm not going to get now into the whole flat earth, ball earth, this earth. I told you, I'm preparing to you already have 52 classes, whether we live on a ball or we live on a flat plate. It's kind of like the Erev Rav series. I thought it's going to be a class. Now with all the sources, it will be a long, long series, what the Torah has to say, whether we're living on a ball, or what they call a globe, or if we're living on a flat plate. So, but we were taught that we're turning around everything. The reality is the world, forget about it right now if it's a ball or not. We're not turning. There's no motion. Do you feel a motion? They say the world is turning 1,000 kilometers an hour. A second. Do you feel that? You wouldn't get dizzy? The world is not moving. Everything is moving around us. Rav Kanievsky even says, anyone who believes that we are turning around the solar system is a heretic. Everything is turning around us. This is the center. Now, why am I saying that? I'm not the center of the world. We think, as an individual, that I'm the center of the world, that all the attention has around me. It's not. There's other people in the world. And in most of the cases, you're not right. It's other people that are right. And there are other people that have feelings and desires, and it's not always about me. That's one of the first lessons that I was taught. You want to be successful as a human being. Forget about now, scholar, Torah, rabbi. As a human being, then figure out that it's not always about you. It's usually not about you. And when you know how to incorporate in your life that it's not about you, it's about you and about you and about my wife and about my kids and about my parents and about the people who suffer, the people who are less fortunate. I'm not the center of attention. You can call it in the Hasidic term bitul or bitul hayesh, or yeah, you are when you operate in complete selfness, that's when you become real successful. How does the Ramban say? "Hashpel atzmecha v'yinasecha hamakom." Humble yourself, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu will make you great. But the more you are a someone or something, you can't be. You're great. Who are you supposed to be? So we have a lot of work to do, and very little time. Bezrat Hashem will bless us to be successful in everything that we do, and we should know only not to understand what we're learning, but also apply it into our life and reach to our true tikkun very soon, way before Mashiach will come.